Hello, Namaste. Welcome to Dev's Hammer Show. This is weekly English talk show on Indigenous television and ITV Nepal. In this talk show, we featurize in-person and sometimes online interviews with guests from different backgrounds. In this episode, we also discuss on various issues impacting Indigenous peoples worldwide. We share the experiences and we try to foster a connection between the communities. In these episodes, I have invited a very renowned person from Thailand. He is none other than Professor Surichai Wun'Gaeo, and he actually is a professor at Chulalangkorn University from Thailand, and he teaches the sociology. So he is with us in Nepal attending the International Conference on Indigenous-Led Research and Education organized in Kathmandu. So I have met him. This is our second time that he has been following the Indigenous-Led Research and Educations, especially from Asia. So we will actually our discussion interaction will be centered around. So first of all, before we enter into our discussion, I would like to welcome in our show.
Namaste. Very nice to be with you and honored to come to Nepal again.
Dr. Surichai, as I just said, a little bit background about you that doesn't tell about your, detail biography about you. Could you just introduce yourself in a brief that I just left out, but you have many. You wear many different hats.
I'm now already retired, but I have been professor for sociology at Chulalangkorn University, and then I had to be responsible for directing Center for Peace and Conflict Studies at Chulalangkorn University as well. Apart from that, I have been involved with several civil society organizations. One at the border with Myanmar, a Metao Clinic, headed by a Karen medical doctor, Dr. Cynthia Mong, who received the Magsaysay Award maybe about nearly 2 decades ago, and some other NGOs working on migration, migrant children's education, and also some case about environmental pollution, like that. Yes. So I'm doing both academic and non-academic, and oftentimes engage with the health promotion activities with the National Health Commission as well. Yes.
Thank you, Dr. Surichai, and it's our honor to welcome you in our TV show. And to start with our conversations, as you already said, in the university in Thailand, you actually taught the sociology, but in Nepal, the Thailand is very close, and many universities actually have introduced a course called Indigenous Studies. Is there also a kind of practices in Thailand, or have the universities planned to start that sort of courses in near future? Could you just share some of your thoughts and your observation there?
At the moment that I know of, there are courses related to indigenous studies, but not that many universities have it. As a program, I think there are only 1 or 2 universities that has indigenous studies and development master's program, like in Chiang Mai University in the north. I'm also from the north, but I just happen to be working in Bangkok, but I'm close to Chiang Mai University as well. So Chiang Mai University is very active because it is also, the location has a multicultural history related to indigenous people's issues. But in other parts of Thailand, like in the northeast, there are some university like Ubon Ratchathani University, bordering with Laos. In the southern part of Thailand, there is one university called Thaksin University, which has Indigenous Laws Center, focusing on how to support the indigenous people's justice issues, doing research as well as developing some courses of teaching. Now they have given quota for indigenous students who want to study there in all the programs existing in that national university called Thaksin in the south, in Songkhla province. So these are the background. But to look in a bigger picture, we have development studies. We have, in that case, there are issues of that is more related to the global context of concern, like SDGs and then indigenous peoples, the case of UN Declaration on Indigenous Rights. So those are becoming drivers of new subjects or new concentration in generally called development studies or international development studies. In my university in Chula, yes, there is no direct indigenous master's program, but there are subjects that are focusing on indigenous biodiversity challenges.
So Thailand, being a member of UN, is a part of UN Declaration on the Rights of Indigenous Peoples. Though it has not ratified ILO Convention 169, but there are indigenous peoples in Thailand. And to what extent, I mean, being a professor, as a scholar, prominent scholar, how do you observe the government's attitude towards recognizing indigenous peoples of Thailand and giving more recognition of indigenous issues in the constitutions or, the laws of the country?
If you take note of the word Thailand, you can see the word. It is a English name of the country, and you can spell it out, land of the Thais. You see, Thailand. When the name of being given of that translation, you could also, you might understand better that it was given in a certain context where, for example, in before the Second World War, just before the Second World War, there were efforts to make the country how to be more unified in the face of a lot of challenges. So there were that kind of recognition, and after that the Cold War strengthened that effort to unify or consolidate under idea that we are all Thais, we are all Thai citizens, we are all Thai people. So but in fact, before this, the period I mentioned, we have had some of our census, population census. We had recognized several, ethnic groups regionally, and there are many hill people, tribal people. There are also lowland people who are of different ethnic groups. So, but all this become under pressure of war, like Cold War. So the kind of highlighting the differences were diluted under the political move of fighting Cold War. So now you see in the world today, the recognition of the diversity, the recognition of human rights have become a global norm. And I think Thailand recognized the necessity to be a part of the the party to UN declarations, including the declarations on the rights of indigenous peoples. But the Thai government, because of that legacy, were not very eager to accept the word indigenous peoples. Now at the moment in Thai parliament, because of the global policy learning, because of cross-border experiences of people, I think the recognition that there are certain population groups that need more focus on protection and conservation, and also how to make sure the rights are guaranteed. So there is a new legislation in process for the rights of and for the conservation of the livelihoods of indigenous peoples or ethnic minorities. But at the moment, I think certain sectors of Thai state are still accepting the past legacy more than the global recognition. So in that sense, I think it is very important opportunity for Thailand. If we see ourselves in the world of climate challenge, in the world of how to bring more experiences globally, mobilize knowledge systems beyond the so-called scientific, and we do have a lot of traditional knowledge pool that could be mobilized. Along that line, cultural diversity and biodiversity could be unified in a new opportunity for Thailand to move ahead. So I see with some constraints, but there are opportunities to mobilize the cross-border learning like what we share here in this conference.
But one of the best feature of Thailand is in relation with the indigenous peoples. What we call is the Asia Indigenous Peoples Pact. The regional organizations, the Thailand actually houses this. So this is an umbrella organization of indigenous peoples organization. UN's regional office, which is housed by the Thailand. So I think all these situation actually has pushed Thai government as well to favor little, if not openly, to the indigenous peoples. Now I want to move you back to our scholarly areas as well, as you are now more focused with indigenous-led research or indigenous-led education. What does this indigenous-led research, is there any difference between a kind of traditional kind of research and indigenous-led research? What is your view on that?
This is a very good question. The conference we are having here is very helpful to push forward that the global problems of inequalities today is very much of common concern, but beyond that, the inequalities relates to oftentimes different cultural differences. And this happens in the world when we are facing very serious disasters. We have more frequent climate or extreme climate disasters. So the climate that relates to the biodiversity loss, the disaster happening more, and on the other side, we are dealing with the world of a lot of inequalities still. So it is important that the kind of research we talk about today in the world today cannot be purely no care of our problems. In a word, academic research with no human responsibility as a core of its concern should be questioned, because our responsibility is now how to preserve the planet together, and how to also solve the problem of inequality so that it do not make it too worse for the new generations of the small people. See? Because inequality now affect the next generations. So if we don't work hard enough to solve inequality through the cultural sensitivity, I think we will make the problem worse for the next generation, and that is unfair for the next generation. So the duty to make research more conflict sensitive, more justice sensitive, and in the case of Indigenous-Led, more care for how to bring the left behind people as a leading concern, leading participant, leading leader in the policy making for the next stage. So we can learn from the indigenous people more by having indigenous-led research and policy interactions throughout Asia and the world.
So when you basically say about the indigenous-led research or indigenous-led education, do you mean that the research or education should be controlled, under control of indigenous peoples, or do you really mean that any research or education that should focus on indigenous issues? What is the concept behind all this indigenous-led research? And also there is, whenever we talk about the research, the issue of involvement, issue of ownership of the research or data produced, that actually comes with. So what do you actually mean this concept of indigenous-led research?
Indigenous-led research is a word that accept the reality of today, that we have serious problems and challenges. As I said, the knowledge to deal with climate crisis are limited only Western science, which is important, which are necessary, but they are not enough, not adequate, because the present global climate problem created by Western science that use too much environment for human consumption, too much uncaring spirit for the Mother Earth, because the present scientific perspective has been dominated by human at the center, mastery over nature. The sense of mastery over nature has gone beyond control. So if we recognize this problem, we have to balance this by recognizing the left behind reference that is non-Western science, that is the science that belong to a longer, not only a few hundred years, but maybe thousands of years, of where we already have learned that knowledge and wisdom before it became modern science. It has been also long accumulated and created. So with this, to have an indigenous-led would mean that we try. The first is balance the unequal recognition that we have lost ourselves in the too much addiction to mastery over the nature. Now the environments are much in trouble. So the only way is to turn around and make the indigenous traditions, indigenous values more at the core, that indigenous people live with nature. Their life belongs to nature and also to every living creatures. So along that kind of respect for nature would help us. There is no other way. And with this indigenous-led research, and then we also need to recognize that there are a lot of resources based economy, a lot of mining, a lot of activities that still use natural resources for economic purposes. That is okay. But the serious challenge is how to not to make overuse of natural resources. And it is not only by law alone anymore, because now everyone in the world, in the global climate platform, it has been recognized by Western scientists and globally that the forest in the world and the biodiversity area left in the world that are left now preserved mostly because they are with the indigenous peoples in the world. So with this kind of biodiversity and cultural diversity linked at the core, which we need to see it is already recognized that the principle of prior informed and prior consent to the communities that economic activities to be carried out. But most time people in power just push the economic speed over the real respect of the local consent. So that principle recognized globally, not practiced locally. So the principle of prior consent, prior informed before any development activities need to be respected using the global norm that is now respected in the climate discussion and also bring it to the top. But I think this kind of meeting would help to bring the global and local to the same level of concern, how to implement this together, speeding our respect to the valuable knowledge and traditions of the indigenous people, even in the northern hemisphere, like the North Pole. Mm-hmm. They are being pushed now by many countries who want power and want to control the Arctic, for example. So I think we need really to bring the global discussion to link more with how to respect the local communities who are preserving the natural resources for humanity, but the narrow-mindedness of the national sovereignty, national interest have now being a negative force of destruction. So we have really to bring this kind of indigenous-led awareness to a more leadership discussion of policy making to balance the very unsustainable world.
So I have seen you following the indigenous-led research. Let's say recently, the universities of Nepal, Kathmandu University, together with CIPRATE, have introduced this indigenous studies as well. I have seen that you have been following, and not only following, but grooming the university studies as well. How do you see the progress that has taken place for last couple of years in the development, or let's say in the progress of having this indigenous-led research or education in Nepal?
I am very excited about the efforts here in Nepal. In initiating the first course of master's program, and there are so many people who already work in the field and also now bring their experience into sharing knowledge for the broader global communities. So these are excitements that I am here with all of you. But the important part, I think that Nepal, with all this kind of longer than millennia, Nepal has a long civilization, long traditions of living with Himalayas. And I think talking about the common humanity resources like Himalayas, culturally as well, we learn through how these resources should be important. But in the last some few hundred years, we have forgotten the longer view. So my point here is that with this indigenous-led research and education become master's program and soon become more to be more broadly, I feel the sharing of students, exchange of students, exchange of knowledge across the borders. Today I was very excited to hear friends from, professors from New Zealand speaking from Maori and also from her own Maori and from her own efforts over there, which also make New Zealand become a kind of magnet of education for new solidarity across countries, including small countries that are to be underwater of the ocean after the climate. So along that line, I think the inspiration that Nepal, we have started here at Kathmandu University plus other organizations, and the one that I heard from New Zealand and I heard from friends in British Columbia, certain Nepali esteemed colleagues have been working and teaching over there. So I think I feel this cross-border sense of sharing our mission, this mission-oriented education and learning, I would want to see more. I am optimistic. I would like really to see the leadership along this line of Nepal to open up, and I am very sure that it could be a very strong catalyst for other countries, other programs across the borders. So I look forward to see more of this across what we call Asia Pacific, for example, because Asia Pacific is also broad, and some people talk about Indo-Pacific in terms of army or defense strategy, but I think Asia Pacific, taking care of the commons of the ocean and the Himalayas together with respect to our forefathers as well as the future challenge, would be a good stimulation for furthering collaboration.
Dr. Surichai, you spent your lives doing research, teaching in the universities. Whenever we talk about the research, indigenous peoples are a bit skeptics. Meaning skeptics is that the researchers coming to their communities, misappropriating their knowledges. Therefore, lately we have heard that there needs to be indigenous-led research. In that stream, how do you think we can, let's say, how indigenous peoples can collaborate with mainstream researchers or indigenous-led research? Should the indigenous community open up to share whatever they want, or do they need to be careful and only open up to the researchers who are especially coming from indigenous background? What do you think in that way? Is there any difference between the research conducted by mainstream, let's say in general researchers, and the researchers especially coming from the background of indigenous community?
If we are fair, there is no research that has been doing about the poor people or the people in the developed countries are well respected. Mostly they are exploited elsewhere in what is called international system of knowledge. But that is not to be blamed alone, but the unequal power, the inequality of power relationships in the world globally has been a part of the problem. But we have to live with it some way. But if we recognize that the word indigenous-led or the word local community-led research are much needed. It came too late, but it came late, but not too late. But the point is that should it be exclusive business of the people of the local community, or should it be understood in a broader relationship building with the outside world, which oftentimes powerful people are outside. The indigenous communities usually are not powerful communities. So in that sense, if we recognize that part, if research without understanding of the relations of researcher and the researched, the subjects, to the people to be subjected, to be cared, then it is very unethical. So the ethical concern of research today must be respected to this principle of how to bring the people who are to be affected by the research to be a speaker, to be a participant, and also to be a decision maker for the knowledge that is to be produced. So the process needs to be shared. So without that kind of thing, I think we are creating more unequal world and more unjust world, and that is the real problem of the existing research world today. So Indigenous-Led research has a very important promise for us to get out of this, but it cannot be exclusive. It should not be to narrow it to be specific community oriented and also specific interest, but it is to ask the question of ethics of research, to be more responsible for caring each other, which are usually unequal relationships, but also empowering the people who are disempowered. And so along that line, I think Indigenous-Led research need to be put in the context of how to create a more just world, more socially justice framed research interactions and policy making.
So Dr. Surichai, we are almost at the end of the show. I don't have a questions, so I would not like to ask you the questions, but I would give you maybe 1 minute time to give maybe one line message to those students who are studying indigenous studies in the universities, or universities who are willing to start indigenous studies. Maybe a message for them, or the answers that you want to say something that I didn't ask you, but you want to say.
I would like to say that indigenous issues, indigenous peoples, all these words, I think reflect on very fundamental positive contribution into the future. So anyone, including the friends who have been discussing here in this conference, I am very sure that the more we look for a more exchange and more interactions beyond our own borders, it would be great. I was looking at the posters here, for example. I thought if we can have more interactions across countries in this region, we can feel even more empowering. The new generations of people across can really be a part of this force for the sustainable future together.
Thank you, Dr. Surichai Wun'Gaeo, for joining on Dev's Hammer Show, and also for sharing some insights on the Indigenous-Led research and educations.
Thank you.
Thank you. With this, we have reached end of the show. That doesn't mean that the conversation will continue. If you have any queries or feedbacks, you can reach us at indigenoustelevision@gmail.com. Please join us in next week episodes with featuring of new guests with fresh topics. Until then, have a wonderful weekend. Namaste.